5 o'clock this, today, Tuesday, September the 15th. And we'll begin this public hearing to hear public comments regarding amendments to the Holden Beach Code of Ordinances, Chapter 157, Zoning Code Ordinance 20-04. Madam Clerk, do you have any comments received?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have staff and elected officials in the room. Is there anyone in the room that needs to speak? Obviously not. Is there a motion that we close the public hearing?
Motion to close public hearing.
All right,
Second.
all right. Mike seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Public hearing's closed. And we'll take a 5-minute recess. All righty, we shall call this regular monthly meeting of the Town of Holden Beach Board of Commissioners to order. And first item to consider on the agenda is the invocation. Let's take a moment of silence, pray for those people, especially in Louisiana, Mississippi, California, with all these environmental issues taking place. All right, thank you very much. We'll officially call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone, which is everyone in the room is staff or elected officials. So let's go to number 3, Pledge of Allegiance, the flag to my right. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's time for us to consider the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion we approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Mike made the motion to approve. Second?
Second.
Okay, motion made, second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. It's unanimous. Number 5, the minutes. July 21, August 7, August 18, and August 18. Is there a motion to approve these?
I move that we approve all of the minutes as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Number 6, public comments on agenda or general items. Madam Clerk, you got anything?
There are 2, if you would like us to read them for you.
Yes, ma'am.
The first one is from Mac Tucker. My name is Mac Tucker and I reside at 123 Carolina Avenue. On July 8th, a camera was installed in our upstairs window directed towards the intersection of Carolina Avenue and Halstead. Between 1 and 2 p.m., there were 9 instances in which vehicles either ran the stop signs with no slowdown in speed whatsoever or only minimal reduction in speed. On Thursday, September 9th, I witnessed 2 vehicles which once again ran the stop sign at Carolina Avenue and Halstead at full speed. In the second case, which occurred at 5:05 p.m., there was a child riding a bicycle approaching the intersection, followed by an adult on a bike and a golf cart with 4 people in it. When the dark blue Ford F-150 went through that stop sign at full speed, that young child and the others could not have been more than 15 to 20 yards from being directly in its path. It is absolutely chilling to see such a sight, and it is only by the grace of God that a number of serious events have not occurred in the recent past. The running of stop signs at full speed happens more often than one would imagine. In addition, there is an issue with visibility at the intersection of Halstead and Brunswick Avenue due to overgrown shrubs. Thank you for your consideration in solving this dangerous situation that exists in our neighborhood.
And the second one is from Earl Baker, My wife and I have made Holden Beach our home and want the best for this town. In July of this year, Mac and Susanna Tucker, Rick Mellon, and I met with Commissioner Tyner to express the concerns of our neighbors regarding the traffic patterns of our neighborhood. I'm providing this letter as a written record of the things shared with Commissioner Tyner. In discussing the intersections of the Wild Dunes neighborhood, all of us shared personal accounts of near-miss accidents we had witnessed from cars not stopping at the intersections. I have personally witnessed 4 such incidents in the past year. We shared with Commissioner Tyner that taking the average incidents we had witnessed and multiplying by the 60-plus people who signed the petition, we estimate there have been close to 200 near-miss accidents personally witnessed. A statistical analysis using ratios used by risk analysis state that for every 300 near misses, there would be 29 accidents and 1 major injury. These statistics seem to indicate the need for changes at these intersections. While definitions of near misses and ratios can be argued, one thing that can be agreed upon is that if changes are not made, it is only a matter of time before an accident at one of these intersections will result in an injury. As a resident with the community's interest in mind, changing these intersections to 4-way stops will cost the town far less than any possible litigation due to our inaction. However, the most important reason for action is safety of the residents and renters. Thank you for your time and consideration in this matter. And that's it.
Have any more? Is that it? Okay, thank you, and we'll go to number 7. Mr. Evans?
This, once again, this is a big house issue. Assuming it's on here for public hearing, or just going for public hearing, we're not going to adopt it.
No, just if they wanted to make any changes as a result.
I'm assuming that it's been put before the board on numerous occasions. We had some amendments that were made to it, and those changes were done. And it's ready for consideration to go forward.
We just have to wait the 24 hours from the
Right.
public hearing time.
I would actually like to propose that we that at the end of this meeting, we recess until Friday at such a time as convenient in the morning for the board to get together to approve this ordinance, since we have to wait 24 hours, and it seems Friday is the first day that we could get together, which would mean simply preparing the document for us to approve it on Friday. Is that acceptable?
What's the pleasure of the board?
Fine with me.
Is 11 o'clock a good time?
Fine.
Okay,
It's fine with me.
okay,
11 o'clock this Friday.
yeah.
Tim, are you available Friday?
Yeah,
Okay. Staff has no problems with that time, date.
Okay.
Okay.
Could you guys try to speak in your mics a little more? I guess they're having a hard time hearing online.
Okay, so the meeting will be 11 o'clock this Friday in this room. Okay? All right, are we ready to go to number 8? Town Manager Hewitt.
Yes, sir. At the August Board of Commissioners meeting, the board selected Raftellus to complete a system development fee study. Raftellus has provided an engagement letter for your review and consideration. This is to complete the system or revision of the system development fee, House Bill 486, that passed 3 years ago.
Yeah.
The cost is $23,858. Just as a point of reference, the previous study cost us $11,500. You have enough money in the professional services water and sewer fund. However, this does exceed our budget estimate. We had included funds for the second water tower study, and then also GIS location of utilities. So while you have enough in the water and sewer fund to cover this study, we're going to come up short
when we get ready to do the water tower study or the GPS GIS location of the utilities. That doesn't have to be acted on. We can come back to you then. I just wanted to go ahead and register that with you for now.
I mean, looking through the procedure that they'll follow and the information they provided, it is detailed enough to say that it seems to cover everything that we need. This is a firm that has done a considerable number of these. I would expect that 3 years in from the first flurry of everybody doing them, companies have a better grip of exactly what it costs. And that's probably one of the reasons, in addition to 3 years later, that it is more costly. So I would actually move that we accept this proposal, the engagement letter, and that the town goes forward to finalize the contract.
That's a motion.
That's a motion.
Is there a second? We can discuss it if we get a second.
Give it a second.
Okay. Anybody want to discuss it?
I would just say that I'm not thrilled that the cost is more than double, and I don't know the way the bidding process and the request for services goes here. It's a little odd that we have to accept the company and then we find out what the cost is going to be. But I think it has to be done. This created a problem when we first passed it, and we've been working for the past 3 years with numbers that really aren't accurate, and they were just backed into by the former commissioners who changed their vote after accepting the new rates that were first offered. So I think it's incumbent upon the town to get an accurate report and to apply accurate fees into the future. So I would vote that we accept the contract.
Any more discussion? Sometimes we have to do what we don't like. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimously passed. Chief? Report on the speed limit and so forth.
Yes, so the speed limit safe, obviously this discussion's been going on for a while, and during the last meeting, I was asked to. During the last meeting, the discussion was brought up about the study that was supposed to be on file. Part of the general statutes says that for speed limits and city limits to be in excess of 35 mile an hour, you have to have the traffic engineering study, blah, blah, blah. So I talked to the DOT and asked them for a copy of that study. And their response to me was that that study would have been done so long ago that they don't have a copy of it. They've moved buildings, they've had personnel changes, they're just unable to get their hands on a copy of that study. So as a result, they have taken it upon themselves. I don't know if you've noticed, but they actually had speed markers, and they've actually started a study on the boulevard of the traffic flow. And I've talked to them briefly about that study, and they said it takes a while. They'll actually use the shoulder seasons here that we're in now. They'll use the winter season to get results there, and then probably run right on into the spring. But I will stay in contact with them and keep you updated. But as of right now, I really have no more information than I had last time, other than the fact that as of right now, no one can locate that study that's supposed to be here, so.
Didn't you, we had a discussion about this, that it was done. Didn't you tell me that they said because of that we've actually been grandfathered in and that we can lower the speed limit absent the report?
That is correct. As of right now, he said that our ordinance as written is okay. You know, that we don't have to change anything until and when the new study comes out, it may support the ordinance as it's written, or it may support a change in the ordinance. You know, we don't know. But as the ordinance is written right now is the way the DOT said that it should remain until, you know, or could. I mean, of course, the commissioners have the option to change that anyway, but they would support the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit as ordinance right now.
Any further comments? Hearing nothing, then we'll expect you to follow the orders as it's in place.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Anything else?
Excuse me? I'm confused. What are we going to do?
My understanding is that DOT says it's fine the way it is, the ordinance, and that the chief is gonna enforce it the way it's written right now.
So we don't have to make a motion since we've been asked this question to leave the speed limit as we currently enforce it on the island until such time as the report from DOT comes in? Just
No,
leave it
sir.
as is?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Unless somebody knows a point of order, I don't know. It's already on the books,
It's there, right?
and we're not gonna change it, so.
Good.
All right, so, thank you, chief. You're up for number 10.
So the next topic is the Wild Foods neighborhood, which is, the next topic is the Wild Foods neighborhood, which has been a hot topic here the last couple of months. And I've actually got a very detailed packet, but I'm going to try to summarize it in the PowerPoint slides here. I hope you have had the opportunity to read the packet. There's a lot of good information in there. But we're going to sum it up here in the PowerPoints the best way I can. If you have questions as we go through it, you can ask them, but if it may do better, I'll probably answer most of your questions, so if you wait till the end. But if you see something you question about, just slow me down and we'll stop and go through it. But basically, the backstory is July 2020, Board of Commissioners meeting, Wild Dunes petitioned for speed bumps in that neighborhood. They specifically requested around the intersection of Halsted and Carolina and Halsted and Brunswick Avenue East, excuse me, were their main areas of concern. So first thing I had to look at was, what are speed bumps? And they're low raised ridges across the roadway to limit a vehicle speed. They are not intended or designed to supplement stop intersections. The main complaint from the community was people running stop signs, but they wanted to petition to install speed bumps, which control vehicle speeds. The two just are not related. Speed bumps are effective at lowering vehicle speeds at a given location, but what they do not do is a list of stuff here. Speeds increase as soon as vehicles proceed past a speed bump. They often divert traffic from one street to another, so you're not fixing the problem, you're just moving it from one residential neighborhood to another. Increased noise level, increased wear and tear on vehicles, reduce surrounding property values, increase emergency response times, and there's no exclusion for general liability claims. So next thing I did is actually went down there and I wanted to see for myself what was actually going on in these intersections. Appreciate the complaints and the concerns, and to get a true study of it, I wanted to see it. So I said in 4 intersections, as best I could, when I got 30 minutes here, 45 minutes there, an hour here. I counted total vehicles, total pedestrians, total bicyclists, and I was looking for 2 traffic violations. Speeding in excess of 25 miles an hour, because all the speed limits down there are 25, and for stop sign violations. So any of the other traffic violations were not included in this, it was just speeding and stop signs. And of course, this area, if you can see on the map, if you're not familiar, this is the Wild Dunes area that we're talking about. These 4 intersections here are Brunswick Avenue, Quinton, Brunswick Avenue, Halsted, Carolina, Quinton, and Carolina and Halsted. Those are the 4 intersections that I observed and maintained. If you also want to include South Shore is also part of this Wild Dunes neighborhood, but just restrictions on time and trying to get this to the commissioners in a timely manner, I did not have time to observe those. So basically the results of that study is that in 10 hours of observation period, there was a total of 216 motor vehicles that traveled at those intersections. A total of 153 pedestrians, a total of 84 cyclists, and the total traffic violations that were observed was 17. There was 9 vehicles that were traveling in excess of 25 mile an hour, and 8 that failed to stop at the stop sign. And this is kind of a breakdown. You can already see this a little bit. So this is a breakdown of the total vehicles, pedestrian, cyclists. You can see it's actually broken down per intersection. The first one there is Brunswick Avenue and Quinton. 51 vehicles, 35 and 16 on pedestrians and cyclists. It moves over to Brunswick Avenue, Halsted, Quinton, Carolina, and Carolina and Halsted. You'll notice that the numbers for Carolina and Halsted are actually look higher than the other ones that are pretty equivalent to Brunswick and Halsted. That's actually because when the totality got done and realized how many hours of time I'd spent in each intersection, I ended up more in Carolina and Halsted, but that was a major area of concern for the community. So if you actually average it out per hour, it actually brings it, you'll notice that graph, it brings it back down. Brunswick Avenue and Halsted is still the highest traveled in that area. It receives the most in all 3 categories. Carolina and Quinton is actually the lowest traveled in that area. It actually receives the least amount in vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists. But that's kind of where it's at. The next thing to kind of pay attention to is the direction of travel. Because as we talked about, it was 216 vehicles, but not all 216 would have approached the stop sign and had an opportunity to violate it. So there was 108 that were traveling north-south, and 108 that were traveling east-west. It was actually a dead even split. And that's by intersection, which direction they were traveling. Brunswick Avenue and, or Brunswick Avenue East actually had the most east-west traffic, which would make sense. And Halsted had the most north-south traffic, over Quinton, of course, which would be its competitor. And then, of the total 216 motor vehicles, there was 17 violations, which was about 8%. You can see that Brunswick Avenue and Quinton actually had the highest percentage, even though it had the lowest travel, it had the highest percentage of violations there. 7 of the violations came right from that intersection, out of the 51 motor vehicles. Then it kind of goes across there. Brunswick Avenue, Halsted was 5%, Quinton, Carolina, 11%, and Carolina and Halsted was another 5%. So, but in total, vehicles was about 8%. But again, that includes speeding and stop signs. And this was kind of a breakdown of that. 9% speed, or 9 speeding, 8 stop signs in total. Brunswick Avenue and Quinton saw 4 over 25, 3 stop signs. Brunswick Avenue and Halsted saw 2 speeding and 2 stop signs. Carolina and Quinton actually saw 3 speeding and no stop sign. And Carolina and Halsted saw 3 stop sign and no speeding. So, there's a lot of way, I won't go into all that, but there's, the way it's laid out, you can actually see the further you get away from Brunswick Avenue and get back into the residential area, the speed's actually lower in that area, but then you get into more of your stop sign violations, so. And then this is your percentage, this is getting rid of the speed, since, you know, that wasn't the major concern, was the stop sign. This was the percentage of just stop sign violations. There was 108 opportunities coming from a north-south direction. Brunswick Avenue, Quinton saw 3 of those out of 17. Brunswick Avenue, Halsted, 2 out of 48. Carolina and Quinton saw 0 out of 10. And Carolina and Halsted, it was 3 out of 33. And then actually one of the public comments touched on this next thing. I actually went through and photographed all of the intersections. I won't bore you with all of those details. But I was looking for why are these stop signs being run. And what I've found, all of the stop signs, all the intersections, they're visible. They're clear except for one. And that was the intersection of Halsted and Brunswick Avenue East. And there's a set of shrubbery there that actually inhibits the visibility. And we'll look at that here. This is standing at that intersection. I'm actually standing in the road photographing, looking west on Brunswick Avenue. I'm actually standing right beside the stop sign. So this is that view, and you can see that the view down the road to see oncoming traffic is not very far. But that's standing there, so I wanted to see what it looked like from a motor vehicle. And this is me pulling my truck up there, and I actually drove up to it as if I was gonna stop, and I put it in park. And you'll actually see where I stopped, because the next picture's from inside. The stop sign is actually behind me. I'm actually way in front of the stop sign. This is my view looking out of the truck to see what's coming through that intersection. You can see how obscured it is. This picture's actually open the door, stand up, you know, in the door frame to try to look and see. And you can actually get some visibility if you'll open your door, stand up and look out. That was the only area that I noticed that had a tough time with visibility on the intersection based on shrubbery.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
may I ask you a
Yes,
question?
sir, absolutely.
Did you measure the 80 feet from the center of the intersection to see if the 80% rule kicks in on that shrubbery?
I did not, and I was actually gonna mention, I don't know what the rules are. I don't know if the town even has any enforcement action over shrubbery. I'm just reporting what I saw. I don't know as far as goes, if there's anything. That may be completely legal.
That line of sight, that shrubbery's supposed to go. It can't be there.
And I didn't know the answer to that. It's just-
There's an ordinance that says the line of sight in that intersection, you've got to be able to see past that. I can tell you that's a violation. But we've had a lot less worse than that taken out. It's just, you know, most of that stuff's complaint driven. Clearly, I'm sitting here looking at it saying, we need something to let our touch, clean the shrubs up. We've actually had cases where they wouldn't, and Public Works, I think, has done it a couple of times right up the street from that. One street up, that because
Next street over, we done some bush hogging on it.
yeah, we turned the bush hogging them, because I just don't know how, I guess we don't travel that road a whole lot, I've never paid attention to it, but that's a violation out there.
That's the front windshield of that tree right there. You have to look that whole.
I mean,
Yeah, I know you're right.
it looks like,
Yep.
I'm not sure from this angle, but it looks to me like the bottom of it might even be in the right of way. The whole tree might be a violation.
Well, if
And
you
this
look
is from the other, I don't know if that helps.
Yeah,
you,
it
but
looks like
this
it's
is-
in the right of way.
at- go back to the other one,
Yeah.
Jeremy. Go back to what we just said. See that pedestal right there, ain't that flat?
Yeah, that's a pedestal right
Well,
there.
that's kind of misleading because of where he's at. The other pedestal could be on the right side. In other words, standing here looking at it from this angle, you rotate it around, the other pedestal might be right of that over there to the other. That's what I was looking at. Go look at the other side. Can you go back to the other side like you did before?
This angle.
Yeah, see how that pedestal looks like it's actually forward? But that doesn't really mean it is. It could be like the two on the other side. See on the right-hand side, it could be the same thing on this side.
Right.
That tree could actually be, that tree looks to me like it's in the right of way. If not, it's definitely in the line of sight. It's gotta be cleaned.
I think Williams definitely already.
Yeah, Lynn's gotta clean up. It talks about corner intersections. The ordinance talks about corner intersections, line of sight, vegetation, and that's a violation, I can tell you.
Isn't it?
Whether the whole tree is or not, I can't tell you
That's the
that.
only corner right there with bush hog right there.
Yeah, and that,
You cut one side of it off without any legal ramifications?
Huh?
Can you cut the whole side off?
We usually send them a letter and tell them to cut them off, and if they don't, we tell Chris, and Chris cuts them off.
I got
So they can do a nice neat job on it, or they can have Chris come out.
Please
And
say I
bush.
do. Okay, I-
Do a government job on it.
I appreciate it. I do bad work, do it.
But you cleaned her up though, bro. We gotta give you credit.
Y'all fixing it the easy way or the real easy way?
Well, I mean, Mac Tucker did make the comment, and it's a complaint that was in the public
That was-
message about overgrown shrubs at this intersection. So it seems you have your complaint that you can act on.
Well, we would.
You can act on that, one, but I still don't make you run the intersection.
right. All right, so, just to kind of summarize here, and then we'll get into a few options, but, basically, summary of findings, the intersection of Brunswick Avenue and East Halsted had the heaviest traffic. It averages about, vehicle approaches about every 2.5 minutes. The intersection at Carolina and Quinton had the lightest traffic, and they had an approach stop sign about every 12 minutes. There was 8 stop sign violations observed. 9 vehicles were clocked in excess of 25 mile an hour. And those clocks, if they were running 26 and a 25, they were speeding, it was documented as that. The fastest vehicle that was clocked down there was 31 mile an hour. That was on Brunswick Avenue East. The average vehicle speed though, or the average vehicle speed for those speeding in excess of 25 was actually 27 mile an hour. But the average for all the vehicles that went down there, was actually 17 mile an hour. And that's averaging in the 31 that was there and those that were speeding. But it was 17 mile an hour was the average speed down there. So based on that and the original petition, the installation of speed bumps, in my opinion, are just in no way supported. I don't see that. So I throw out some other potential solutions and considerations based on what I did find. There's clean shrubbery, paint roadway, add reflectors. This is the cheapest option, and I'll actually show some pictures. You have to use your imagination a little bit, but we'll talk about those. You can ordinance adoption of four-way intersection. It would require additional signage, all that good stuff. You can add flashing or, the LED lights. Those can get costly, but you can add those if you want to. And then, of course, if you got your speed bumps or rumble strips, which I didn't really get into, but they're not supported on this study.
Can I ask a question here?
Yes, sir.
Was all the observation you made, was it in daylight hours?
It was, yes. It was all during daylight hours. Yeah, there was no nighttime observation. If you wanted a full study of this, you would need much more time, day, nights, weekends, holidays. I mean,
The reason I was asking, I
yeah.
was thinking about the reflective stuff, in the daytime, I still would think you could see a stop sign when they have to have a reflector or.
Yeah, they add some
Yeah,
visibility.
okay.
We'll talk about two-way versus four-way stop intersections. Two-way stops are designed so that your major traffic flow does not have to stop for your cross traffic. So if you got major traffic flow, let's just say US 17, you've got another major traffic flow, 211, they stop for each other. But your major traffic flow is US 17, you don't put a stop sign on 17 where Mount Pisgah comes out. You don't stop your major traffic flow for your minor. Your four-way stops at intersections are used in intersections that exhibit approximately equal traffic volumes. And they also take into consideration vehicle pedestrian conflicts and conflicting traffic visibility. With that in mind, the Wild Dunes neighborhood for this analysis, it was 108 vehicles east-west to 108 north-south. It was almost, or not almost, it was exactly a 1-to-1 ratio. Each intersection varied a little bit, but the totality of the neighborhood was a 1-to-1 ratio. Motor vehicles accounted for 48% of the Wild Dunes travel. The other 52%, over half, was actually pedestrians and cyclists. It's a consideration. LED stop signs, another consideration. Tell you all you want to know about those. They can get very costly. They will add all of the visibility in the world you want to have them add, though. And they can do continuous 24-hour flashing. They do dusk to dawn sensors, push button activation. If you want to add road sensors, they can actually not come on until a vehicle approaches when they're on the road. But all of that's there. And those I feel like are much more viable options than the speed bumps that were presented. And I'm just going to throw these out there. These are some pictures. You'll have to use your imagination a little bit. This is an actual picture of this intersection, Brunswick Avenue East in Halsted, and it's been photoshopped a little bit. This is not. This is the original image with the street names added on it. If you went with something like adding reflectors on the existing stop signs, it would add something like this. I don't know if you noticed that subtle change. Something like this. That's one option. You could paint stop bars in the road. Just something as simple as getting the paint for the stop bars. Or you could do that full intersection, add reflectors, stop bars. You could paint stop in the road. I mean, any combination of this stuff would add visibility to it. From the other side, if you added stop bars, this is what it would look like. So even as you were approaching, it would give you some added visibility that, hey, I see stop lines on the road. I know this cross traffic has to stop. If you wanted to go with the four-way option, it would look something like this. We just add a stop sign. Or you could really brighten up the whole intersection. You add reflective posts, reflective stop signs, do paint bars across all four, and that's what it would be. With that in mind, whatever we do down here, there's a total of 6 intersections that have to be addressed or should be addressed or considered. And they're listed there. Those are the 6 intersections. And of course, an overhead map, this is what those 6 intersections look like. That's all I have on slides. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, we'll be glad to talk about it. And that's what I have for you.
Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
There's no reason that we have to do the exact same thing at every intersection though, correct?
There's not anything that says you have to. I have nothing to back this up, this is my personal opinion. If the intersections are not consistent, they're gonna be confusing, and when you go through the intersection at Quinton Street and you stop, and you go to Halsted and you don't have to stop, to me, it just gets to, where do I have to stop, where do I not? You just make them all the same, if it was me, but I have nothing to back that up, just my 2 cents worth.
Well, it was, the only reason I asked that is that when you read everything, and it does talk about when you are making a decision on whether or not you need to go to a four-way, and I know there has been a lot of discussion in past years about not going to a four-way. One of them was the weight of traffic, and your
Right.
description was, we have one particular intersection that does have a heavier weight of traffic.
Correct.
So that was my question about,
Right.
do you need to do them all the same, do you feel? Or can there be a one-off for the heaviest intersection?
I mean, I think, based on this, I think you can justify just addressing the one intersection, of the heaviest. But then again, I still have to go with just my personal belief is that, to me, if you're gonna do it, you make it consistent across all of them. I mean, you'll have to make that decision based on what's here, but, you know, that's just my personal opinion.
Jeremy, is there any, I know you probably don't have a clue about this, but who is running the stop signs? Is it possible that it's actually residents of that community that's doing it the most often? The people that live there and are used to no traffic and blowing them every day, or do you know if it's?
I don't, and I would tell you a caveat to this is, while we were doing this, I made no traffic stops down it, because I didn't, as soon as you turn the lights on, it alters people's behavior, and I wanted a true study of what was going on. After this was done, we went down there and, caught somebody running stop sign, stopped them. It was a construction worker, he was issued a citation for that, so he was working there, he wasn't a resident, but he was working down there, he should know the intersections. So I do honestly believe that when this comes down the pipe and people start getting ticketed down there, that you're gonna discover that it's homeowners, construction workers, the people who are over here every day. Again, I have nothing to back this up, but I think when people go on vacation, they have a little bit more tendency to pay attention to what's going on around them and stop and, you know, because it's their kids playing in the intersections. I think your homeowners, and I'm not pointing fingers, but they get complacent as they go through that intersection every day, and
The only reason I said that, I used to live at 113 Carolina, and I know for a fact that I probably wasn't a saint at stopping at all those stop signs every time. I just kind of wanted to, you know.
that's my 2 cents. I have nothing to back that
Catching
up.
up with something right now.
Yeah, I have nothing to
I'm
back
just
that up,
asking.
but
Because there's a lot of permanent residents back there.
that's correct, yes, sir.
So I don't know why, like, tourists or whatever would have a lot of reason to go back there as much as they would Ocean Boulevard or anywhere else. But I just wondered if you saw town stickers on vehicles or anything like that, so.
No, I haven't noticed that yet, but I do, my personal feeling is that but I have nothing to back that up. Only time will tell that matter.
We definitely, at least as far as the trees and anything that we can do that's actually in violation of I think we probably could at least get that done.
I mean, when I looked at this and everything, what struck me first was a combination of something flashing as well as painting on the road gives you more of a visual, you're expected to do something. And I'm gonna go beyond that and say, and a period of enhanced police presence where there will be tickets handed out for running stop signs would reinforce if it is mostly residents, and then could carry forward next year into when we get heavier traffic for season to see whether or not it's made a difference.
Right.
I mean, that's sort of my first thinking is, do those two things to the intersection and then have an increased police presence looking for violations and ticketing them, to see if, you know, we can get control of the worst of those intersections where, yeah, people are probably just, I'm hearing they're rolling through, or, you know, hopefully most of them are rolling through and not going full tilt, but, you know,
Most.
you can occasionally miss one if you're new to an area, but after a while, you know where they are.
Hey, Jeremy,
Yes, sir.
can you back one of them slides back up to the intersection, which is that where you was putting the reflective signs on the post?
This one?
Yeah. Go back to the next one up. Right there. I could be wrong, but I wonder what it took you to put a stop sign on this side too.
That's,
Stanley Road, I drive it every day, and about
One
3
on
years
this
ago, they added stop signs on both sides of the road and also had warning signs further up the road, and I don't know, seems crazy, but for some reason or another, this sign on the opposite side of the road catches my eye more than that one does, even though I knew it was there and drive through there every day. I mean, that may be something that we could try there, you know, as far as that stripe on the pole there, that's fairly inexpensive, rather than doing the $1,500 signs and having to start painting the street and all that, and just try that to start with and see if we notice a difference. But that's just my opinion. I'll do whatever y'all direct me to do.
I'll get the bush cut down.
Yeah, in the bush.
I guess I'll give you my opinion on this. First of all, somebody going 27 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone, nobody would think they were speeding unless you were doing this type of survey, right? I mean, 2 miles an hour, that's really, to me, that's not a violation. I said this the last time we brought this up, right? The speed bumps, they don't complement the stop sign. It doesn't make sense, they're going short enough. The other thing I would be concerned about is once the people in Wild Dunes, if there's a decision to make more stop signs, change it, the other people who live in that area outside of Wild Dunes are gonna want the same type of changes made to their intersections too. Because if it's happening at, you know, Holden Street or Quinton Street, it's happening down at Crab and it's happening someplace else. So, I mean, to me, again, I said this, my experience, my background, it's enforcement. If you only have 9 people going through that stop sign, just to let the people who aren't here and didn't get the benefit of looking at this slideshow, and I compliment you, you did a terrific job and spent a lot of time on it. At the 4 locations, there were 12 separate times when somebody checked it out. It went from July 30th, so the height of the season, till September 6th, which is still Labor Day. The average speed at the various locations when you did it was a low of 10 miles an hour and a maximum of 19. That's the average speed for all the vehicles that went through the intersections. So even at 19, they were 6 miles below the speed limit. And you've had 17 violations in total, 9 for speeding and 8 for failure to stop. And like I say, in my humble opinion, if most of those speeding were within 2 miles of the actual speed limit, I wouldn't even consider that. So it's really the stop sign issue that we're talking about. And I think that with a little enforcement, as people indicate, there's people that, once you give out a summons or 2, first of all, it's all over the Friends of Holden Beach. It's like getting audited. You give out a summons, it ripples out there, and people know about it quickly enough, whether they're here permanently or they come here for a little bit. The word goes out that the Holden Beach Police are enforcing the stop signs down there, and it's going to remedy the situation. And if that doesn't remedy it, then we can go look at further things. But to me, that's the simplest way to do it, the most economical way, and it doesn't have any ramifications into the future.
Well spoken.
Any more comments? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you, Chief.
yes, sir.
Thank you, Jerry.
Oh, absolutely.
Ms. Ferguson?
Yes, sir. I'm going to give you all a status of the inlet and beach projects through the eyes of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. So where we've been, The Central Reach project is proof that beach nourishment is key to protecting valuable resources. We saw that in light of how our neighbors performed during the storm and what our beach did for us. Projects are long-lived in that we just received the last Matthew reimbursement July 15th in the amount of $136,843.79, and the last Irene payment in February in the amount of $177,437.96. Both of those storms we tied to that Central Reach project. Matthew came through right before we started the project, and Irene, we had asked for extension letters for, from when it came through, I think in 2011, so that we could tie it to a project. And as such, FEMA can audit you 3 years after the project closeout. So not from when the project occurs, but from when the books are closed out. So we still have 3 years of audits available. Where we've been, Florence, we lost approximately 770,944 cubic yards plus vegetation and sand fence loss in the tune of $15,861,220. Michael, 389,304 cubic yards lost, $8,547,506. Both of those are based on our approved PW, or project worksheets is what that stands for with FEMA. With Dorian, we currently don't have an approved project worksheet yet. That is stuck in EHP review. The engineer's estimate on that is 555,297 cubic yards lost, and or right at $15 million. We did register a complaint last week through Congressman Rouser's office with that not moving through EHP. We do have 2 new portal systems, one with the feds that came through last year that we had to learn about the time that the storm was coming through, and one with the state that was just introduced when COVID hit. And when we close one notebook, we open another. Where we are, our Central Reach permit renewal submission went in on Friday. We need a handful of easements based on a slightly expanded template this time with tapering. That's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 45 easements as we count it up. We have a question on how we plan to tie the projects together. We know that we have approved project worksheets for Florence and Michael that I just spoke about. Not sure whether we'll be able to tie Dorian in depending on timing of when those worksheets come through. And we have weekly interface with the portal system at a minimum, and monthly reports that have to go in on all the storms at the same time each month, which is before the 10th. Where we are, and then comes Isaias. Engineers' early estimate, 60,000 cubic loss in engineered beach area. We're looking at a little over $5 million in Cat G losses for early estimates. He hasn't finalized his report yet. We did meet with officials with the North Carolina Department of Public Safety and one of the FEMA beach TACs who actually that beach TAC has been the one to come for the last 4 storms for us. And on the visit, he talked about how he tries to encourage bundling of storms with FEMA because it saves on mobilization, but how EHP is beginning to look at that as a negative, and they're actually butting heads within their own organization. I thought that we were going to need a seatbelt for David because he did let them know that we would not be waiting for approved project worksheets before moving forward with this project. He was trying to combine this storm with the other 3, which would be a lot to accomplish. New sand search requirement. We currently don't have enough sand with this last storm from the sand search we just did. So we would have to do a new sand search in order to do any replacement from the past storm that just came. And change in FEMA regulations, David mentioned last month, no sand losses are counted in the initial designation for federal declaration. The response to the storm, contractor reports approximately 750 cubic yards of debris was taken off the beach to date. Expects to remove broken sand fence posts by the end of the week. That schedule may be altered. Our contractor just had a death in the family this week, so that date may change. One of the most important first steps is fertilizer to damaged plants, so that was completed early in the process. And we did have some lessons that we learned from Florence, Michael, and Dorian that we included in this year's budget that you guys approved to help us better prepare for storm response. One of those examples is that we learned that FEMA was going to make us go out to depth of closure with our surveys post-storm. Initially, for the past few, we had done what had been done for years, and we would just do regular surveys and not go out to depth of closure until we were told that we had to. But this year, we went ahead and included that in our survey estimates, and so we were better prepared when they showed up. We are going into the future at looking at bid documents going out May of 2021 and a project start date of either winter 2021 or 2022, depending on the bid climate, meaning when bids come back in, if they look like we get better prices for going for 2022, we would do that. Engaging with the attorney to discuss the easements that are needed, re-engaging with financial consultants and the bond attorney that helped us in the past to discuss next steps in projects and the best funding mechanisms for the future of the town, obtaining cost estimates for sand search in the next month. We are operating a project behind now in permitting. On the table in front of you there is an example of the core boring from the last sand search that we just completed. Where we're going continued, a letter of intent was sent to the Corps regarding the coastal storm damage mitigation project. We are at the table for the South Atlantic Coastal Study discussion to highlight Holden Beach projects, discuss Sandstar, Brunswick County, and look at policy for the Lockwood Folly Inlet regarding sand. Participating in the upcoming virtual Hill meetings that the representatives from Pointer Sproul mentioned the last time they were here. Continuing outreach with the Wilmington District on least cost method of disposal regarding the inlet, and continued discussion with state and federal representatives regarding projects. This is the last survey of the inlet. I believe the date on that, the map date was August the 30th. And the survey was done around the 24th. This continues to be a hot topic. In our correspondence in the last couple of days, we've heard a rumor that the Coast Guard is saying that they may pull the navigation aids. That's yet to be seen, but it looks as if the county's trying to get something done towards the end of October, which would be the first time that the Corps would be available to be here with the merit. As far as opportunities, we have found an additional Christmas tree source after the season for using that to build the dunes. We're going to investigate that further. Continuing engagement at all levels, local, state, and federal. Challenges that we have with these upcoming projects is we're working on someone else's timeline, meaning we don't know how Dorian's going to play into this and where the project worksheet's going to come in or not. Any additional storms we may have this season. As you guys know, it's pretty hopping out in the Atlantic right now. And our longtime state contact with the Department of Public Safety has been promoted. He is still our grants manager and on cell phone status with both of us for Florence and Michael and Dorian, but any storms after that, we would have a new project manager. And that's what I have as far as that slideshow. I'll be glad to take any questions that you guys may have.
ISAA sand, and we're going through this, that's assuming that we get a declaration of emergency, right? If there's no declaration of emergency, there's no payment of sand. I thought that I had heard that it was like last week that there was supposed to be some sort of a decision made, and I don't remember hearing anything. Do you guys know when they're supposed to come up with a definitive?
I would just qualify that by saying just because there's a federal declaration does not necessarily mean that Dorian would grant us an approved project worksheet. But that notwithstanding, assuming that happens, yes, but no, we don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's my.
I would also add to that. So what we're finding, because I think as I heard your question, that the sand search, it doesn't matter if it's for this past storm that just came through and took 60,000 cubic yards approximately based on what we have, or something that may come in the future. Right now, we are operating a project behind, meaning the next thing, or this storm that hit our beach, we don't have enough sand to go back out and take care of that. And it's taking at least a year, if not more, in permitting, so.
I wasn't, I mean, I understand that, and sand search was not really my big thing. It was more about the tying everything together. It's how likely is it that we're gonna have ISAS to tie in, or is it really about, can we get Dorian pulled forward so that it's all one big happy project and not Flow Mike, and then we have to do Dorian a bit later? So I appreciate, it wasn't about sand search, because I agree with you, the sand search timing, where it's the concern about, are we doing it too early and possibly causing problems? Well, it's so difficult that, you know, sometimes you just have to take that risk. And the other, I had, looking at the bid documents going out May of 2021 for a project possibly starting in the winter, which I would hope we can do winter 2021, because, you know, I don't want to go through any more hurricane cycles than we have to. But is May, perhaps we should pull it back a month or two on the assumption that we may have to, you know, we don't get enough bids and we have to go out after more. So I was just wondering if May of 2021 might be a month or two later than it should be, given the experience of, you know, sometimes not getting good bidding and having to go out again. That was just a question. And then, just the, can we make the decision that we're gonna stop at Flow Mike because everything else is too far back, or is that ultimately FEMA's decision?
I'll answer your first question.
Okay.
The thing about the timeline, that came directly from ATM's RFQ that they turned back in. We've discussed that timeline with Fran, and he seems pretty confident with him, but I can ask him the question coming from this meeting and find out the answer of backing that up.
Yeah, because I do think the other company that put in their qualifications, I was kind of lining it up, and it looked to me like they might have been saying April, which is what prompted me to think, you know, is even a month earlier sometimes is important. So, but that's fine with talking to Fran about it. Fran's the expert.
That, I don't have any confidence whatsoever in that other schedule. That was not even a project that had anything to do with Holden Beach. That was an imaginary, hypothetical schedule on something that didn't have anything to do with Holden
It was one of the
Beach.
things that prompted me wondering about, was May maybe a month or two later than would be optimum.
But to your question of bundling the projects, when we get, in order to put bid documents out on the street, if Dorian's not ready to go, we're going to have to be forced to do that because of the dredge windows.
Okay.
Now, should that change depending on what the bid climate is? If bids come in high, we can't do the work in 21, the winter of 21, perhaps we can amend it later. I don't know. But when we get ready to go put the bid documents together, if we don't have a Dorian PW, then we're gonna have to go what we got.
And then it would be much like Irene was, we would have to ask for extension letters for that project to, the only way it would make economic sense would be to tie it to something else.
Chris,
Yes, sir.
I have a question about the sand search. Since we just completed one, during that sand search, did we find any possible locations that might be compatible, that we chose, you know, A is better than B, so we're gonna use B rather than, I'm saying, do we have a leg up on the next search because of what we just did?
Fran didn't seem to think so. When I talked to him, he felt like we'd be pretty much going to a new start.
Okay.
I had one more question. Engaging with the attorney to discuss easements.
I'll talk.
Yeah,
I'll talk to the board. Sidebar with that in a later
thank you, okay.
time.
Anyone else have any comments or questions in regards to item number 11 on the agenda? Thank you, Ms. Ferguson.
Yes, sir.
We'll turn the page and go to number 12, Ms. Ferguson.
Yes, sir. We sent out an RFQ to select a coastal engineering firm. ATM has been our engineer for many years, since 2001, but because of FEMA requirements, we needed to send out an RFQ on that service. We advertised multiple places in the Star News, on the town's website, and through some direct contact with several coastal engineering firms that are affiliated with the Beach and Inlet Waterway Association for North Carolina, to solicit competitive proposals. The first due date was August 17th, at which time we only got a proposal from ATM. The Mini Brooks Act does not require that there's a number that you have to have. However, FEMA can decide what adequate number is, and that language didn't make us feel very confident with just going with one. So we did send that out again with a due date of September 8th. We got 2 proposals back. One was ATM again, and the second was SEPI Incorporated. Upon review, based on the proposals that were sent back in, it did not look like SEPI had the beach nourishment background that ATM has, and their scoring sheet done by the town manager, it was included in your packet, and you can see, based on the staff scoring, how the two stacked up against one another. There is a resolution here at the back of this packet that's 2008 that does have the selection of coastal engineering firm of ATM for the town. So suggested motion is approval of Resolution 2008, which is Attachment 6, establishing ATM as the town's coastal engineer.
Comments and questions? Motion? Anything?
I move that we accept Resolution 20-08 for the selection of ATM as a coastal engineering firm for the town.
Mike made the motion, is there a second?
Second,
Pat made the second. Discussion?
I would just say the reason that I am in favor of retaining ATM is just look at what happened just a few short weeks ago, a month ago. We weren't just lucky when the storm hit and damaged severely Oak Island and Ocean Isle Beach. We were prepared. And the reason we were prepared is because of the work done by the town manager and the assistant town manager and the other people, but also the work done by ATM and their leadership and advice and technical skills. So to me, it's if it's not broke, don't fix it. And we've done well with them for the last 20 years, and I think we should continue with them.
Any more comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
aye.
Opposed say no. Madam Clerk, it's unanimous. Number 13, Town Manager Hewitt. Talk to us about disaster, debris.
Yes, sir. When Isai has hit us, we were left with a situation where we had to make a decision on picking up debris by contractor inside of gated communities. The board chose to do that irregardless of the reimbursements from FEMA. This resolution proposes 2 things, that be the town's position going forward. whether or not FEMA provides reimbursements, but also, and as importantly, we oftentimes struggle to come up with issues that have statewide application. Beach nourishment is something that only happens down here on the coast. And what this resolution is attempting to do is to establish the town's support of a policy that would allow us to champion or to take forward and advocate the removal of debris from inside gated communities in a different form, so that perhaps we were able to influence federal policy to that end. So that's what this resolution attempts to do.
Questions or comments, anybody?
I obviously at times feel uncomfortable when I'm having to address things like this because I happen to live in one of the gated communities. But I do have a few comments to make. I very much appreciate the fact that the town is wanting to advocate for gated communities to receive equal treatment to other municipal communities for disaster debris pickup. I understand from other groups that I'm involved in that have been working on gated community property owner associations getting these things recognized, how important this can be to have it clearly stated going in who is going to be responsible. I think in the town of Holden Beach, we're trying to be one community. And it doesn't matter if you live behind a gate or not, we are all one community. And we use our tax money, whether we, let's just say, are directly advantaged or not. I can speak for what West End people sometimes say, which is we have to manage our own walkways, but our tax money goes for the public walkways, and we're fine with that. We manage our own road, but our tax money goes for the side road paving and the rest of the island, and we're okay with that. We have not received sand fencing, fertilizer, etc. down on the West End because we've had deep dunes, but that doesn't mean that we're not happy to have our tax money go to help bolster the areas of the island that need that work done. So it's a case of, again, trying to be all one community. And the town establishing that they want to have a policy that they will pick up the debris, whether it is a gated community or not, does make all of Holden Beach one community. But a separate, more important point is that if the town would make a decision to pick up the debris on the West End because it was a very serious situation, and then the town would have to justify to FEMA why that should be reimbursable, one of the things that the Stafford Act and FEMA guidance does talk about is that there has to be proof that the town has established a legal obligation to the gated communities that they will pick up the debris. So unless something is in place, then it's difficult to go to FEMA after a major disaster where the debris has been picked up in gated communities and justify the reimbursement, because there are some steps, as I read it, that need to be taken. Whether or not we want to have one resolution specifically for advocacy and a separate created that lays out the policy, to me doesn't matter. We do need one as a priority for advocacy. I would hope that we could proceed with something that will also make the intent clear that the Board of Commissioners is accepting of having gated community debris picked up when the debris contract is activated. But we could split these into two things, if that would make things easier and faster at this point to get something for advocacy. But one way or another, I do believe the town is going to need to make some specific steps to be ready to justify to FEMA in the future if we are going to pick up debris in gated communities.
Okay.
If I could add to that, I'm sorry to enter the debate, and I don't mean to do that, but just to add on, to piggyback on Pat's commentary, it's not just the west end. The east end is also a gated community and probably has a lot more vegetation than anywhere else on the island. So that would be one piece, and I forgot the second one.
Okay. I would just like to say that Commissioner Kwiatkowski made a good argument, but I think I can rebut most of her points. The fact that they take care of the walkways in the streets in the West End is far different than the town having access, because everybody has access to these, including the people from the West End. However, nobody can go into the West End and use the walkways in the streets because it's a gated community. So there's a difference there. The argument I want to make, I don't want to make because of you're different, we're different. That's not the argument. I don't want it to sound that way. What I want to point out is the gated community is the reason why FEMA doesn't pay for it. The people who live in the gated community, whether the East End or West End, they choose to live there and they want to have their privacy. And I'm fine with that. I understand it. But if the cost of having your privacy is the fact that you don't get the benefit from FEMA, I don't see why the people of the town should incur that cost. The last meeting, we were asked about that. And it's an example of voting on something without really having an opportunity to think it through. At least I didn't have the opportunities. I voted yes. But then as I thought about it over the past period of time, I think that if you want to maintain your privacy, God bless you, you're entitled to it. But there's a cost that comes with that. And there's no reason why we should incur that cost. Because the next time, again, to go back to the speed bumps, the next time a section of the island wants something done that benefits solely that section, what do we tell them? We tell them, no, we're not going to do it. Or we say, well, we did special for the gated community, so now we're going to have to do special for this other community. I'm just not in favor of it. I think that I'm all in favor of the advocacy, but I think that there are two paragraphs in this resolution that can be removed, and we would be able to do the advocacy, and on a case-by-case situation, we can decide, the board at the time can decide whether or not to include the gated communities in the pickup and absorb the cost of that. But to sign a resolution that's going to do that into the future without knowing what that cost is going to be, I'm not in favor of that.
I would like to make one clarification on public use on the gated community. Anybody can come in by foot or by bicycle into the gated community, and they do. People use the POA's walkways, particularly the first one, which is a very special walkway that is very easy to use. So we do not prevent people from coming into the community. We prevent cars from coming into the community because we don't have enough room for parking. We don't have any place for the people to go. So I'm not going to say it's as a privacy issue as much as a road safety issue, but it is a means of preventing motor vehicles from coming in. Not the people, but the motor vehicles. So again, I would just say that nobody stops anybody from using the POA walkways, biking on the road, walking on the road. We have people down there all the time, but it's not a true exclusionary gate.
I'd offer up for the board that if you'd like to break this thing apart into an advocacy thing and one that's solely aimed at advocacy, and then perhaps into 2 resolutions to actually deal with the matter of taking care of on a case-by-case basis, or as an overall policy. From an operator standpoint, I'm just trying to get, it's a lot easier to know when these things go down, what types of resources that you have to work with. If the board wants to do it or entertain the idea of on a case-by-case basis, that's fine. It's just from an operator standpoint, you know, if you know what the playbook is, it's a lot easier to have already practiced it. I'm okay with pulling back from this resolution and bringing it back to the board in you know, a form of 2 resolutions. The League of Municipalities advocacy is where I had tended to take this forward to try to influence some policymakers. That usually happens in the spring, April-ish timeframe, so there's not an immediate need for that, although there will be a call going out pretty soon. But I'm okay if y'all would like to. I don't need an answer on this tonight. And so I'm okay if you'd like to pull it back and the staff to bring it back to you in the form of 2 resolutions for further consideration.
I would like to see that come October. If you want me to write a town manager tasker for that, I'm more than happy to do it. But to bring forward 1 advocacy and 1 town policy, separate resolutions in October, I think is the right way to approach this.
Without objection, I'll ask the town manager to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Town Manager, you have a directive to.
Yes, sir, I
do
understand.
that.
I can do
All
that.
right, thank you, sir. We on number 14. Mr. Sullivan, employee benefits.
Okay. The reason I wanted to place this on the agenda is that, I guess about a year and a half ago, we had a study done where all the positions were evaluated, the salaries were evaluated, the fringe benefits were evaluated, and compared to other municipalities to try to establish a reasonable wage and fringe benefit package for the employees of the town. What we did is we more or less adopted the monetary part of the report, and we then subsequently did some of the changes as far as some of the fringe benefits go, but we never addressed the health plans. And I think at this point, we need to look at the health plans. Last year, we voted to keep it the same because the issue came up right before the health plans were going to be renewed. We didn't really get a chance to discuss it, to analyze it, to see if we wanted to keep it the same or change it, or whatever the reasons. So what I think would be beneficial for us is just to lay it out there. I'm having a hard time finding the page, but it's in the packet here somewhere, and it shows that the town of Holden Beach, thank you, pays 100% of the health insurance for the employee, which is in line with most of the other communities that were used as a comparison. But when it comes to the family coverage, the town of Holden Beach is 80%, which is considerably more. If you look at it, without naming all the towns, most of them are 40%, 35%, 50%. And so the question I have is, are we going to continue at 80%? Is that reasonable? Or are we going to make some modifications in the coverage that we offer the employees of the town? And I think that the simplest way to do that, I understand that there are privacy issues and that the cost actually varies depending on the age of the employee, but I think it would be pretty simple, straightforward math if we looked at what does it cost us currently at 80% for the employee's family, and then we find out, we can do the math, what will it cost at 40% and 20% and 60%. And when we get those figures, we can just discuss what we want to do with them.
Further comments?
So we'll have that, like, have
So I guess if it's okay with the board, I would ask that the town manager have whoever it is who takes care of the health policies, just make a table for us showing the cost as it is currently at 80% and what the cost would be at 60, 40, and 20%.
Mr. Hewitt, can you do that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any objection to that? All right, Mr. Hewitt, again, please do that. Anything else, Mr. Sullivan?
No, thank you.
Number 15, Ms. Ferguson.
Yes, sir. The current landscaping and irrigation contract with Champion Resort Maintenance expires October 6th of this year. The staff conducted an informal bid solicitation. Staff sent or made phone calls to around 11 organizations that are in the area to let them know that the bid solicitation was on the website. 3 bids were received, with Carolina Creations submitting the most responsive bid. In your memo, in your packet, the breakdown of the bid tab is in there. The most responsive bid is $26,681.04 higher than the existing appropriations. Currently, this service is budgeted at $31,200 and sourced equally between B part at $15,600 and the general fund at $15,600. Continuing this method of paying for the service would require sourcing of $13,340.52 from both the B part fund and the general fund. This can be done with the B part fund with a reprogramming of $13,340 from the concert line due to cancellations with the COVID. And likewise, the general fund, the contribution would come from reprogramming funds from available for the appropriation line. I will say that even though this comes in at around $57,000, or a little over $57,000, when you look at both landscape maintenance and irrigation, when we bid it out in 2017, the only other bid that came in besides Champion Resort Maintenance was at $72,000.
How much a champion?
Champion, currently, we pay $31,200.
31 to new bid.
And that
This
contract
time-
ends October is over.
His contract's over. And currently, the most responsive bid is landscape maintenance, Carolina Creations at $55,126.92 a year, and their irrigation service at $2,754.12. This is $26,681.04 more than Champion currently.
Well, the first thing I'd say is that whether everybody agrees or not, I think we ought to send the Champions a thank you letter for the work that they've done, because obviously that's a lot of money difference between what we were paying and what's proposed possibly to be paid. And I'm sure that's the reason they're not interested in doing it anymore. What's your pleasure?
I would actually ask whether or not, I mean, we have two things that are actually being required. Let's just say basic turf maintenance, mowing and maintenance. And then there's the more landscape-oriented flower beds, tree pruning, the weed and insect applications, the pesticide applications. Is it possible that we have, I mean, this bid that is a low bid didn't actually split out their costs like some of the others did in terms of how much the mowing, basic mowing and everything is versus the other things. But could it be possible to have the town do the mowing and hire to have the landscape maintained, the chemicals applied, the pruning done, the more landscape oriented? Because this is a considerable amount of money. I'm just asking for ways to make this more within the budget.
No.
I don't think so.
No.
I think Chris threatened a mutiny.
What staff I got, I can't make that happen.
This is, I'll comment on this. Since I've been here 13 years, the town has transitioned from just having a couple of little garden plots with a few little flowers in it. Public Works has always maintained the right-of-ways, the heavy-duty mowing kind of stuff. Since then, we've continually added improvements and nice stuff in the parks and these areas. You know, we need, if we want to keep up this type of service, we've been through the bid process. This is what the market reflects to take care of this type of things in the community. You know, we've solicited a dozen people. These firms are all local, and there is a bit of difference between the high and low. But, you know, I go back to something my granddaddy said, and it's like, don't let your eyes be bigger than your belly at the buffet. You know, we've got these things here now, and it takes work and it takes an expense to make these things look nice. And now we've got the other side of the bridge to take care of. That's a fairly big project. So if we're going to have this standard of living and put forth our best foot, these are the costs that have to be borne it just doesn't happen without tending to it. You can't just plant a garden and not hoe it. And that's where we have gotten to. I think that there's a lot of nice looking stuff, and people have the impression that it's all you got to do, but those gardens and landscaping elements, it takes money to keep those things going. And this is just maintenance. This is just maintenance on the existing things. The questions on making further improvements and adding to, that's not entertained in here. Although we do know that the Beautification Club and other complementary type marketing elements enter into the equation, and we get benefits out of that. So we're going to see more requests for improvements in our public spaces, is my opinion.
I agree with that. I know that's a DOT project across the way over there, and in my opinion, it's not a very good installation. It's not a practical installation to keep up. Do you know, it's like taking care of something that's kind of impossible to keep up with? I don't know what I'm trying to say other than the fact that it takes a lot of effort to keep the weeds out of something didn't have fabric down to start with or anything like that to keep it from growing in the first place? I mean, are we gonna, is that a lot of money associated with doing that because of the way that was installed, or even other places on the island? And is there a chance of improving that installation over there?
I
It's
can
your
start.
doormat to the island, in my opinion, and I think it definitely needs some work.
I'll start and then I'll let David chime in. Beautification Club has mentioned some stuff they'd like to do at the entrance there. Unfortunately, there are a couple things that will have to be addressed. One is if you go back and pull the DOT agreement, which we did, and David and I have had some discussions over it. It basically says we agree to maintain it as the third party. The agreement was between DOT and the county, and that any changes, modifications, or anything in regards to changes done to it has to go back through them. So I'm not sure how much we can add or take away from what's there without going back through the agreement. And I do know that the only person that walked through this, or the only company that walked through this project before they put a bid in with the Public Works Department, myself, was Carolina Creations. I know that they have some ideas and that they offered that they do design services. So there may be a chance to do something in addition, but again, that's gonna cost more money. So we'll have to look at the agreement and see where to start, is I think the question as far as doing anything additional over there as a follow-up.
I'm gonna say something I shouldn't say publicly, I guess, but I'm extremely jealous whenever I go to Sunset Beach and Ocean Isle Beach, at their entrances, how well manicured and inviting it is, and then we come to the entrance of Holden Beach and we don't hold a candle to them. Of course, the difference is their entrance is going up the bridge, you know, that's in their town limits. And our entrance to our bridge is not. And I still look at that as a mistake of the past that we have to live with now. But it is embarrassing. And as mayor, I capture a lot of questions and comments and snide remarks about it from time to time, about why we look so much less appealing than our neighboring two islands. So,
That's what I was trying to say. If it costs $25,000 to maintain the existing, could you put that toward improving the existing? Because, and I see Ron out there and the champions doing the best that they could with that, but it's basically, the effort was spraying weeds all the time and trying to keep mulch on the side of a hill that's probably impossible. And it's just the nature of the initial installation that causes that burden that's never gonna go away. And I think maybe a little more effort should be, if it's possible at all, to be put forth to actually improving it where it's easier to maintain. And maybe by doing that, even though it may cost a little money up front, that later on, if it's installed correctly, the price and the cost of maintaining that installation would be less in the future. If we could go ahead and bite the bullet, and so to speak, and get that out of the way, if we could go ahead and start some dialogue with DOT or the county or whoever we have to go through to get that done. I mean, quite frankly, most of the vegetation over there on that hill dies out in the winter. It's just brown. I mean, that's all you have is weeds. So I don't know how you maintain that. I don't know how Carolina Creations is gonna maintain that to look decent. Like, in my opinion, if we're maintaining that, we might as well just let it go and not spend the money. But it's just my opinion, my 2 cents. It looks bad where other areas of the island look good. Looks like they've been taken care of.
and what's our water bill running? I remember a while back we discussed how much water was being used to try to water our plants and all over there. David, you and I talked about a concern about that.
It's been a while. I want to say that we have projected about $7,000 a year, but don't hold me to that. I'd have to look.
6 was coming to my mind, so that may be
Yeah.
ballpark.
Which is in addition to the contract numbers that we'll be talking about, right?
Yes, sir.
Just so everybody gets the big picture of the whole cost of that.
In order to move forward with just the grass mowing and irrigation tonight, though, aside from trying to figure out what to do with the north side of the bridge and talks with DOT, approval of a one-year contract would require BOC action to do so, along with the attached budget amendment at attachment 6 in your packet.
I would just like to make a comment before we vote on anything. In addition to the cost analysis that they gave us, they included their contract. And if you look at the contract, they have a hold harmless agreement where the town agrees to hold them harmless and to pay for any damages and their attorney's fees. That's not right. They should be holding us harmless, and we should be listed as additional insureds on their insurance policy. It's page 199 of the agenda packet. Four paragraphs up from the bottom of the page, hold harmless. I'll just read it to you. In the event that there is a claim, damage, loss, or expense that is caused in whole or in part by any active or passive act or omission by you, anyone directly or indirectly employed by you, or for anyone whose act you may be liable, then to the fullest extent permitted by law, you will defend and indemnify and hold harmless our representatives and us from and against any of these claims, damages, loss, and expenses, including but not limited to attorney's fees arising from or resulting from the performance of our work under this agreement. That's not usually the way it works. The vendor insures the person who hires them, not the person who hires them insures the vendor. And I'd like them to strike that, and then to add us as an additional insured, the town as an additional insured on their insurance policy.
Any motions, discussions, or further comments? Hearing none, we'll move to number 16.
I just say if the board doesn't take action, the stuff's gonna die because I don't have the resources to take care of it.
Well, it seems that if there's something that needs to be changed in the contract terms and conditions, we can't approve it anyway.
The board can approve it and direct me to make that administrative counter to them. If they want to enter into the agreement with that, then that can be the direction that the board can provide to me.
That's my suggestion. It's up to the rest of the board whether they want to agree with it
You
or
want to make
accept it
that
as it
motion?
is. I'm
You
sorry.
want to make that motion?
I make the motion that we accept the contract pending the suggested revisions to the contract.
Commissioners understand that motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion made, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
You also need to do the budget amendment.
Pardon me?
The budget amendment needs to be approved too.
All right, the budget amendment addressing that to fund this project, right?
Correct.
Is there a motion to approve do you want to address that in any way, or just,
It's covered in the memo.
all right?
I move that we approve ordinance 20-15, amending 2010 revenues and appropriations ordinance for the fiscal year.
Second.
Motion made, second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. It's unanimously approved. So the contract offered with the proposed changes, funded by the motion just passed unanimously. Number 16, Mr. Hewitt, paving assessment slideshow.
Yes, sir. Last month, the board directed to initiate a petition process for 3 streets within the town limits for a special assessment. I thought it proper to share with the board just a few slides on how that assessment process works. To answer the first question that's not been asked is that in our first slide, the first kickoff is that we get a petition. Last month, the board directed us to go ahead and initiate that. Where we are with it, we actually have the one for
Pointed at me. I'm sorry, I don't wanna.
not Deal Street. Seagull. We've got that one drafted up and prepared, and we're waiting on the tax scroll listing from the tax collector to make sure that we have that one done correctly. But suffice it to say, and that'll be the template for the other 2 streets, Deal and Canal Drive. Once we get the petition, the clerk certifies that the petition is sufficient in that the majority of the property owners that represent a majority of the linear feet of frontage on the street are in fact petitioning to be assessed for it. And unless the petition specifies otherwise, you can't assess more than 50% of the cost of the project. And that's the total cost of the project. It's not just the paving, it's the engineering, it's surveying, it's the environmental work, all that kind of thing, the administration too. There's a preliminary resolution that's adopted that gives the details of the project. Then there's a public hearing held on that preliminary resolution. We have to give notice of that is published, that the preliminary resolution has been adopted, and a public hearing set. Then the notice has to go out and mailed to the owners of all the property that's going to be assessed. After the hearing, the board may adopt a resolution directing the project to be undertaken. Once the project's completed, the board determines the total cost of the project, and then when the cost is determined, a preliminary assessment roll is prepared that details the specific amounts that'll be assessed to each property owner, followed by a public hearing that's held on the preliminary assessment roll, and after the hearing, the board modifies or confirms the assessment roll, and then a copy is delivered to the tax collector for collection. And I preface all of those remarks by saying that realistically, I think that you're looking at a 1 July project, a summer after the fiscal year starts, and get it done while the weather's still hot. I know that paving during the tourist season is probably not the best thing, but perhaps we'd be able to bundle it with the other half of Brunswick Avenue. In terms of what we're looking at, it's $300,000 was the total cost. It's about $150,000 that'll come from the general fund. One other benefit to doing it after 1 July is that the board can take that into consideration in their budget deliberations, because that $150,000 is going to come out of your general fund and will impact fund balance. So that is, I think that just from the time frame of you're looking at a summertime project coming forward on that. So that's all I have, and I just wanted to run through the slides with you to give everybody an overview of what we're looking at. Hopefully we'll get that letter out here once Margaret was on vacation last week, and we'll get that out, that initial petition for consideration out here shortly.
Okay. We ready to move on? You got a town manager's report?
Yes, sir. Briefly, the gen set status for new town hall It's right outside the window behind Pat there. The unit is installed. They were putting fuel in it yesterday, and we are awaiting the beta test to be scheduled. I assume that'll be done here in the next week or so. So we should be ready to go there. Needless to say, the rental unit is still with us through the end of the month. Status of our hurricane debris, the contractor started yesterday. Pickups finished the week of the 25th of August. That debris has been staged at Turkey Trap, and transportation to Sampson County is currently underway, and we assume or anticipate that that'll be done by the end of the week. At the risk of being doubly redundant, Christy mentioned it in her report, and I think that I mentioned this last month, but Heather said I was talking real fast. It's probably the first time I've ever been accused of talking fast. But I have had several questions about the letter of intent study that we submitted. The board directed us to proceed with that from Congressman McIntyre's visit, and that has been done. Further conversations with the Wilmington District. With their concurrence, we submitted that last month. So the status on it is we could be eligible to be included as early as next spring if we're selected for the work plan, and we will hold off on submitting the 7001 application depending on how our letter of intent is received. Looking at January, February possibly to see if the town made it into the Corps' work plan for fiscal year 21. Following up on the inlet status, we have confirmed that the Coast Guard wants to pull the buoys out there. They are on record as stating that the inlet is not adequately maintained, complemented by the fact that the hurricane pushed several of those buoys around. One of them was on the end of the beach there for a while. But there is a meeting tomorrow with the Corps and the Coast Guard that's going to, hopefully we can gather some more details on just where that's going. Looks like the bridge rail project finished up this afternoon. They were shining it. I think that usually means that they're finished with it, and we'll see. Status on the sewer lift station. A contractor appears to be ahead of schedule. He anticipates starting up mid-October, and the only thing that departs from that looks like we're going to have to put a small retaining wall on the western property line there. That's outside the scope of their contract. We'll handle that as a separate matter with a different vendor. Other than that, that's all I got.
Any questions of the town manager? Okay, mayor's comments are brief. The Oyster Festival, I understand, has been postponed. The Festival by the Sea is still unclear what the Merchants Association is going to do on that. Hurricane season is still with us. We've got another month to go, and crossing our fingers and hope we can make it the rest of the season and consider ourselves lucky. The chief and I were talking a few days ago about the dogs on the beach. I believe September the 10th, chief, allows people to have the dogs back on the beach, and I've only had a couple complaints, people not knowing that the date had come, that people could take their dogs on the beach during the day. Rentals are across the island looking extremely improved for the month of September and well into October. So what the town may have lost in early spring because of the virus in regards to the occupancy tax, it looks like we may be, if the storms will stay away, we may pick up and end up ahead of last year. At least that's what projections look like right now. Sales are still extremely strong, and construction is extremely strong on the island. So island-wide overall, I think the future for this fall looks extremely good. Complaints on my end have been somewhat reduced from the citizenry and the visitors what a relief it is compared to a few weeks ago following the hurricane. So, yeah, thank the good Lord. And with that, Mr. Brown, you have a report for us?
No, I'd just like everyone to kind of remember that Woody is at home, okay? He went through bypass surgery. If you have a moment there, just give him a call. Because about 7 years ago, I had to do the same thing, and a phone call can do an awful lot to help a spirit, okay? But he got a pretty good little road to recovery. Anybody that goes through that surgery does. Okay, so I'd ask if you have a minute, just call him, say, and he would really appreciate that. Okay, we've been very fortunate as far as COVID goes. I just say, hey, let's keep the mask on, keep doing like we do, okay? And it's great to hear good news on our rentals and everything, and let's just stay safe, and hopefully these storms will keep on away from us, okay? Everybody be safe.
Brian?
I would like to also reiterate to keep Woody in your prayers. I know he'd love to be here instead of there. Thank the staff again for all your hard work and on all these little projects. To the general public out there that's listening, any concerns you guys have, we have time. So any requests for items to be put on the agenda or anything you want to talk about, it's a good time to do it. And I'm extremely happy with the rental season that we've managed to pull off in the back of everything that we've had to deal with. So everything seems to be going pretty good.
Mike?
I'd just like to say, in today's world, with all the turmoil and dispute we have, that last Friday, excuse me, was the anniversary of 9/11. And it, as a country, we promised never to forget, but it's harder and harder to find a memorial service. And I would ask, I was remiss, I haven't done it since I've been on this board, but I would like to remind the town to do something next year for 9/11. Whether we make a proclamation, whether we do something. And I'd also ask that the people here, I'm Catholic, I go to the chapel every once in a while when the mood moves me, but we should have a memorial service in the chapel. I would ask that we have a memorial service. I have to travel to South Carolina to go to a memorial service. I do it every year. And I just ask that we do that as a community. And I really have nothing else to say.
Yeah, just remind me of that next fall. Ms. Pat?
I just want to say thanks to the town again for getting everything looking back to normal, the debris pickup, every effort, but also to the homeowners who really did step up really quickly and get things cleaned up. I mean, I know it wasn't a Category 3 or anything, but there was a lot of mess out there that needed to be taken care of. So thanks to all the property owners for getting everything whipped back into shape so you can almost not even tell now.
All right, thank you for your reports, and let's look at number 20, consideration of going into executive session. Madam Clerk?
Executive session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A6 to discuss a personnel matter, and to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A1 to approve minutes.
Is there a motion we go into executive session?
Move that we go to executive session.
Second? Second. All in favor, say aye. All right,
Aye.
we're gonna go into executive session.
To take action on ordinance 2004.
Okay, 11 o'clock. Call me at a quarter till, remind me.
I hit you, Tim.
Okay, all right, okay, let's get in order here. All right, we have a motion to recess. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Hallelujah.